I'm Robin Crawford, and I'm pleased to say that I have in-depth knowledge of the majority of the events as they unfolded in December 1967. If I'm not back by Wednesday, Trapped in Jamaica's Blue Mountains is a true story which can best be described as a real-life documentary of the largest and most extensive airland search and rescue mission on the island of Jamaica in recent memory. To a lesser degree, I have been following the development of the story's manuscript from its infancy in December 1967 until its first publication in June 2016. The great school that we know as Jamaica College began as Drake's Free School in the late 18th century, and though it went through 3 relocations and name changes, it maintained a carefully privileged status through the generations until establishing itself in Kingston on July 9, 1885. JC remained the island's most respected and accomplished high school for generations. There was an expectation, whether on or off campus, that its boys should uphold high standards of decorum. Students were required to stand whenever a teacher entered the classroom. Apparently, all of these attributes were not sufficient for 5 JC sixth formers who, on December 16, 1967, decided to challenge the wilds of our rugged Blue Mountains by taking an outlawed trek through its perilous jungle. The very jungle which was used by Canadian and British armies as training prior to being dispatched to war or to face terrain similar to the jungles of Burma, now called Myanmar. On Thursday, December 14, 1967, plans were being finalized by 4 of the 5 boys who were determined to conquer the peak at elevation 7,402 feet via a mythical trail the boys had only heard of. The trip was to take 3 or 4 days, commencing on Saturday the 16th, 1 day after end of term. Those boys were Roger Bates, aged 17, George Hussey, also 17, Cecil Ward, 18, already graduated and in a full-time job. Gordon Cooper and Donnie Suter, both 17, completed the 5. Jeffrey Haddad, also 17 years old and a 6th former, overheard the plans being formulated, and being an avid bird hunter, Boy Scout, hiker, and a man of the bush, Jeff inquired if he could tag along. His request to join the group was met with a resounding, "No, not this time. We are already 5, and 1 more would be one too many." The next day was end of term, and, as the boys were filing out of the chapel, Haddad, known to the boys as GB, was summoned to a meeting upstairs in the Sims building by George Hussey, the leader of the expedition. The news was that Donnie Suter had become ill, and GB was being requested to take his place. The meeting of the group of 4 took place very close to the actual location depicted here, where a group of 6th formers were reviewing the manuscript in 2012. GB, as well as the others, had never been away from home for any extended period without adult supervision. Furthermore, he had never been to the peak and was afraid to let his father know of his plans. He hid them as best as he could, but that would not be for long. Perchance, Hussey called GB's home on the night of Friday, December 15, and allowed GB's old man, B.S. Haddad, only a slight idea of what the 5 were up to, and that, in all likelihood, they would be retracing a trail that existed some 30 years prior. The message for GB was that he was to be up at the Cooper's home by 1 o'clock the following afternoon. B.S.'s parting words to Hussey, as he remembered and recalled them on numerous occasions along the journey, were, "This is a trip that you all will never forget." And B.S. made him promise that, if you encounter any jungle or woodlands, you would not try to cut through, and that you will immediately turn back. On December 16, 1967, the 5 boys were dropped off at Clydesdale in the foothills of the Blue Mountains to face what would later become the fight for their lives. The plan called for the boys to leave Clydesdale, position 1 on the top left of the map, hike along the road to Cinchona, position number 2, spend the night there and access the Blue Mountain Ridge via Sir John's Peak, number 3. Positions 4, 5, 6, and 7 marked key station points along their planned trail to the peak, located at number 8 on the right of the map. A trail which began at Main Ridge Gap, position number 6, gave some comfort in the event they ran out of time, food, and water. Here we see, albeit from a different angle, an aerial view of the mountainous terrain that comprised the journey from Cinchona, indicated by the arrow in lower right, to the peak, seen at top right. Main Ridge Gap, starting point for the alternate route, should they decide to abandon the mission, is also marked. And so the journey began. Raging winds. I still remember enjoying more than the usual amount of Christmas breeze in the St. Andrew foothills that season. Tree canopies obscuring the sun and the view of searching aircraft. Lack of sunshine was pervasive. Effective temperatures below 0 due to the wind chill effect. Fog, clouds. Then there was the rain and giant wasps. Giant tree ferns, impenetrable bamboo grass, insurmountable waterways, forest conditions not easily penetrated by machetes, as seen in these 2 photographs. And so the group marched on, pausing to take a few photos along the route. Here we see Cecil surveying the surroundings from his perch above ground. It was up here atop the Blue Mountain Ridge at 6,000 feet where the group made the near deadly mistake which resulted in them ending up in the bowels of the Blue Mountain jungle on the north side of the main ridge, perched on a lower ridge from which they never thought they would be sighted, much less rescued. At 3 p.m. on Tuesday, December 19, I spotted GB's father, B.S. Haddad, driving past my home at number 16 towards his home at number 25 Windsor Avenue. I flagged him down and passed on my friend's earnest last words as I recalled hearing them. Right after GB had divulged to me the details of his plans to, quote-unquote, cut a new path to the peak, he immediately asked me to keep them a secret from his father. However, there on my veranda, GB also mentioned in unmistakable terms what has since become the title for his excellent book. If I'm not back by Wednesday, call out the army. Not only did B.S. Haddad call out the army, but also the police, private citizens, scoutmasters, ham radio operators, surveyors, schoolmasters. All private aircraft alerted joined the search mission, as well as numerous citizens, forest rangers, the JDF, and other private helicopters. Newspapers reported stories of the missing JC boys, alerting the nation to be on the lookout. The very forest ranger who saw them begin their hike later said that he had seen them exit the bush on Wednesday, December 20th. A nearby shopkeeper stated that the boys had spent that night in his shop. Of course, these were all rumors which resulted in many of the platoons going on useless searches. On December 24th, with no news of the 5, the Daily Gleaner printed the story with some speculation as to what the boys may have been up to. The entire nation was now on alert for the boys, who had by now become 5 of the most wanted persons in Jamaica. Prior to this, however, on December 22nd, the boys had encountered a fern patch on a north-facing ridge in the Portland jungle of the mountains close to the Swift River some 2,000 feet immediately below them. By December 24th, they had made the life-saving decision that they were never going to move from that spot and were ready to set the mountain on fire if the aircraft they had seen searching for them over the last few days did not locate them. At 8:48 a.m. on December 24th, a mere 3 minutes after contacting the tower at Palisados stating, "Delta Yankee at 9,500 feet, North Blue Mountain Slopes, Portland, returning Palisados, no sign of missing boys, over," spotted David Dumont and pilot Jackie Tyndall Biscoe in his Cessna Skywagon aircraft with identifying characters 6Y, JDY, reported finding the boys and alerted the air wing of the JDF to carry out the rescue. The following photos show the last 2 hours of the boys' brush with death and the ending of the tremendous state of suspense in which they had inadvertently put the entire population of the island over the last several days. Left photo shows JDF H-1's first pass with stretchers on board, and on right, Captain John Dent lowering a box of food supplies for the boys. While Captain Bunny Stern expertly steadies the helicopter as close as possible above ground, and with Sergeant Keith holding on to one of the skids, Haddad climbs aboard in this dramatic photo taken by Gordon Cooper from the top of a 50-foot tree. Earlier, the boys had frantically chopped off some of the branches to allow a closer approach by the helicopter. And then it was homeward bound. Although embroiled in emotion, GB was thankful to be alive. The Daily Gleaner, December 27, 1967, reveals the story along with a note of thanks for all those who aided in the search and prayed for them throughout their hike. After almost 10 days in heavily forested terrain described as inaccessible as any place in the world and perhaps where man has never trodden, the boys had found themselves hopelessly lost, trapped and far from a living soul. Cold and starving, they probably had hours to live. At last, however, they were home and all alive.